Alright, I'm going to make a video to try and help with something that I discovered while trying to reload some 300 Winchester short mag, and the realization I came to after doing a little bit of digging. So I had some brass I'd traded a guy some nozzler bullets for. Was pretty stoked because it's hard to find 300 short mag brass, and I've got, I had about 150, 200 of them, and 100 of them that were factory load still. So I had a good chunk, but I was able to get rid of some components that I didn't need and get some more brass. Long story short, sized it down, loaded it up, wouldn't fit in the gun. I didn't check the brass after sizing it to make sure it would cycle into the rifle. It was sticking in the chamber and wouldn't let me close the bolt. On any that I did try and close the bolt, as you will see right here, it left that nasty little scar down there at the base as I closed the bolt. And actually you could feel a little bit of where it scratched the brass out. So I knew that's where it was sticking, and I thought, okay, I've done this before. I've seen videos out there that I used when I was loading some 243. Had the same problem, it wouldn't chamber. So I turned, instead of the die turning it a quarter turn past the shell holder, I turned it in a half turn, and on my 243 that worked great. It pushed the brass far enough into the die or bumped the neck back or whatever was going on and sized it down to where it would fit. So I tried that on this rifle, tried to chamber around, no good. Still wouldn't work. Adjusted the die 2 or 3 different ways. Tried propping the brass up on the shell holder by putting a couple little pieces of paper under it to try and push it just a little bit further into the sizing die. Still wouldn't work. So getting pretty frustrated and thinking this guy sold me brass that's blown out and worthless. I'm getting pretty mad with myself, and decided to take out my micrometer and start checking stuff. Check factory rounds against these size brass, and everything was matching up except for that spot at the base. Well, lo and behold, as you can see on this cartridge, its maximum tolerance is 0.555 inches, just under a quarter inch in from the base. Well, that's right where that rub mark is at, and I can't think of why my brass isn't sizing down. I'm running it through a full-length die. And so I pull my micrometer out, check the inside diameter of the die, and find that it is 0.556, which is 1,000th over the maximum tolerance for that cartridge. Well, still makes sense to me that if it's 1,000th over, that brass is going to size just slightly under that. Should put you within tolerance. However, on brass that was fired once and twice, that worked. On the brass that's fired 3 times, it didn't. And I couldn't think of what to do. Didn't make any sense to me. I've seen people say you could trim your shell holder down on top so that your brass will shove further in. I wasn't going to try and dork around with that. I don't have the right equipment for it. So I went to the local store and figured that they maybe had a die set that had a better tolerance than mine. And lo and behold, I find that there is such thing as a small base die set. The one I'm using is a full-length die set. I had my micrometer with me at the store, checked them, and the inside diameter on the small base die set is 0.553, which is 3/1000ths smaller than the full-length die set. So I grabbed that, brought it home. Sure enough, one cycle through that small base die, and it fits in my gun. So if you're trying to chamber something, now these small base die sets I looked up on their website are intended for a auto-loading rifle or a pump action, and they size them below that maximum to make sure that they will cycle in those auto-loaders. Supposedly you don't need it on a bolt action. You did on mine. It's a Winchester Model 70 Extreme Weather. I'll throw it up here real quick and show you what the problem was I was encountering. I'm going to have to take this camera and move things around a little bit. If I was to take a piece of brass that had been sized in the full-length die, here's what you're going to see happen. This bolt, oh, well, I've got them mixed up now. Showing you the result before I show you the problem. This bolt will not close for anything. As I showed you before, if I was to force that, it's going to scar right there on that round, that brass on the case. Well, that's been run through a full-length die 2 or 3 times, and the problem is it may squeeze it down to that maximum tolerance, but the brass pops back out. When you pull it out of the die, it springs back just slightly, and it's actually, if I measure this, there were some of them coming out at 0.556 and 0.557, which is 1,000 or 2,000ths over the maximum tolerance. When they come out of that small base die, I didn't grab that didn't grab the round. Closes just great. Cycles like normal. They spring back slightly out of that small base die as well, except for they're being squeezed further, and so the brass will chamber. So anyway, that is available if you've got brass that's being sized, and after being sized you can't bump the shoulder, or you can't do whatever it is to make that die, or make that brass smaller and fit in your chamber. You may find that you need a small base die set, and that will size that brass down to where it should fit.